Hello and welcome to this video on hydrometers, one of the more common brewing tools. Hydrometers are a tool that measures the relative density of different brewing fluids by measuring the buoyancy of the device. This occurs through the tool having a set mass, which is generally tied to the mass of water in the same space that hydrometer takes up. This is going to fluctuate around the 50 and 100 milliliter mark for small units. This is a practical example of Archimedes' apocryphal displacement story. The difference between the zero measure, which is pure water, and any other measure is the addition of sugar and other solids which dissolve in the water. The hydrometer itself is a sealed glass tube. Good quality units will have the graduation markings in the sealed cylinder and on the glass. Meanwhile, cheap units will glue or stick a cheap plastic sheet on the outside of the cylinder. The better options will also measure the density for a range of options such as wine, beer, and cider. Go with the slightly more expensive but higher quality hydrometers for a longer life of use. Once you have a hydrometer in hand, you will see that it has a tall, narrow measuring section. Then it balloons out. This balloon section causes the majority of the displacement. At the bottom of the buoyancy area is a constriction, followed by another small balloon shape. This area is filled with lead nowadays, but older models had mercury. This material is then capped with wax or some other sealant. The lead acts as a ballast which keeps the unit upright and ensures there is always a minimum displacement equal or just slightly greater than water. The different kinds of hydrometers are calibrated to a different sugar or purpose. This often relies on more or less of a balloon and ballast. When you use a hydrometer, it measures difference. To do so, take your brewing batch and gently let the hydrometer fall in. It will float up and down for a little bit until it settles at one point. This will give you your reading. In the case of brewing, this will be around the 1000 mark. You want to take one reading at the start of brewing when the wash is at room temperature. The hydrometer will fall or rise in the wash as it balances the mass of the tool and the wash. Low density liquids like ethanol will cause the hydrometer to fall. Meanwhile, high density washes will either fall less deep or rise in high densities. In either case, you will have a variation from the roughly 1.000 mark on the hydrometer. This will give you an accurate idea of how much sugar is present. When you do this the first time, it is called your original gravity. You want to repeat this process at the end of fermentation. This is called your final gravity. You get a difference between the original and final gravity. Using this information will be its own video in the near future. The important point here to take away is that you need an observable change in your wash, as this is the first measured proof that fermentation has taken place. This leads into the first type of hydrometer used, saccharometers. These measure the amount of sugar in solution. This assumes a set amount of sugar per liter or a set density per liter. This becomes a standard no matter how large a volume you ferment with. 1 kilogram of sugar in 1 liter will exert the same density as 10 kilograms in 10 liters. This number, when you are measuring it, will fluctuate before and after fermenting, and as a consequence, the density will shift. Where the specific gravity is lower after you've fermented than you expect, you will find that there is more alcohol in the beer or other brewing product, as more sugar has been converted into the low-density ethanol. Where the specific gravity is higher, and there is going to be less alcohol in your brew. This will mean the yeast did not function, or some other problem has occurred. You can try and solve this in some of the ways that are listed in other videos. There is a second type of hydrometer relevant to brewing and commonly used, This is called an alchimeter. As the name suggests, it measures alcohol. It is an especially useful tool in production of spirits. The alchimeter takes the density of water and assumes this is a universal. The graduation markings in the buoyancy relate to how much in percentage terms the density differs with alcohol present. Alcohol is lighter than water, and this means more alcohol decreases the density. Less dense liquid leads to the alchimeter dropping in a way that the graduating markings match with. This will tell you how much alcohol is in the solution. This device is influenced by a number of factors. These include temperature, the type of alcohol, the hydrometer's assumptions, and the uniformity of the content of your wash, or in this case, alcoholic beverage. Both of the hydrometers described have a need for certain conditions, which if not met, will affect the reading. If you measure the solutions more than 5 degrees above or below room temperature, which is about 20 degrees centigrade, it will alter the density. Altered densities play havoc with the assumptions of the hydrometer's manufacturer. This is because they assume a reasonable consistency in the circumstances of all solutions measured. Second is the assumption about the alcohol being measured. In the case of an alchimeter, or on the basis of a solution when measuring gravity, the alcohol should conform to a single type, such as ethanol, rather than a mixture of ethanol, methanol, and fusel alcohols. If you are using a mixture of alcohols, the result can shift, as they each have different densities. This is also true of hydrometers used for brewing, which measures density which will fluctuate and change with room temperature and mixtures of sugar. This is very much like combining different alcohols. The hydrometer itself is designed and manufactured with assumptions about the purity of alcohol, substrates, products, and other things being measured. If these assumptions are in error, the conclusions and predictions you draw are made on a false pretense. This will throw off any calculations you attempt to use. A hydrometer is a very useful tool, which will give you early results when brewing. It can measure the purity of products and more. This is a simple but reliable tool for brewers that works so long as the device is undamaged. Thank you for watching this video. If you have found it useful, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions below.